Operating a conveyor dryer is actually more than the purchase price. So we really should know what's involved with the cost of operating a dryer. First of all, you have the voltage. You can order a dryer at 115 volt, 230 volt, or 230 volt three-phase. 115 plugs in any place, but that's going to be more expensive to operate than a 230 volt single-phase conveyor. And if you're able to use three-phase, you're going to reduce your power cost by at least 40%. Three-phase is typically associated with very large dryers, whereas a single-phase 230 or a 115 would be a smaller unit, such as in a startup shop. So you want to look at your voltage. Now, once you've looked at the voltage, we have some other considerations in terms of the operating costs of the dryer, one of which is temperature control. Temperature control is a must, just like the oven in your house. This particular dryer has one temperature control here and one there, which means there are two elements on this side, and there happen to be two temperature control dials on the opposite side. In other words, this conveyor that we're looking at happens to have 4 separate heaters, each individually controlled. And what that means is, if you're printing, say, 6-color simulated process or 4-color process on a shirt, and maybe only producing 45 or 50 shirts an hour, then you would only turn on one heater. That means you're only incurring the cost of one heater. On the other hand, if you are, say, printing 400 shirts an hour, maybe you're running an automatic or you've got several manual presses operating, then you would need all 4 heaters on, incurring a higher operating cost, but then you have more revenue because you're producing more shirts per hour. So what you want to do is match your cost of power to the revenue that you're able to produce per hour. And by having separate heaters with separate controls, you have that ability. Part of having these temperature controls is being able to regulate the amount of heat, which is like turning on the electric bill or turning down the electric bill. And obviously you want to keep the electric bill as low as possible and you still get the job done. So temperature control is critical to your decision of what you're going to pay in the ownership costs of having one of these conveyor dryers. Okay, there's some other considerations too. One, you want doors on both ends, so you keep the doors down when you're doing shirts, leaving only an opening of maybe 2 inches, but then you raise the doors if you're going to do sweatshirts or hats or bags, something that is higher. So this makes the dryer more efficient. The first option you want to look at is whether or not the supplier has a splice point like this that allows you to add another heater in the future, another one of these hoods. Now, the value of that would be, today you could buy a hood size that meets your current needs, and presumably a smaller hood, spending less money, but without cutting off the possibility of your business growing and needing another hood section. So you want to look at whether or not your conveyor can be expanded. That's an important option to consider. Another one that might save you money is whether or not you can buy the conveyor without the legs. If you get it without legs, does that save money? In which case you'd put the conveyor on a table or sawhorses with a little adjustable feet to level the dryer. So there's another possible savings. Another option would be digital. For example, digital readout, digital temperature control. The digital readout is nice in that it tells you whether or not the heat under this hood is consistent. Digital temperature control, well, and even digital readout, they're not exactly accurate, because the way this works, you have a thermocoupler, which is a wire that goes underneath the hood. And if that wire is close to the heater, you're going to have a high reading. If that wire is placed lower, the reading is going to be dramatically lower. The temperature difference between the heater and the belt is at least 120 degrees. And if the reading is taken close to the belt, the temperature that's being displayed is going to be jumping all over the place. You're going to think there's something wrong with the dryer, when in fact there's nothing wrong with the dryer. But it gives you a sense of comfort to see a constant reading and a high reading. The only thing is, that is not the true temperature being experienced by the ink. So it's an indication, but it's not perfect. However, it's a nice option. You may want to consider having a digital readout. Another option that you may want to look at on your dryer is the tracking system. All conveyors have tracking at the end of the belt, and there will be two like acorn nuts or some way of moving the belt and the roller so that the roller on one end is parallel to the roller on the other end. There's another feature called 4-point tracking, and that's actually better. 4-point tracking means you have not only that adjustment feature at the outfeed end, you also have it at the infeed end, and that allows you to fine-tune the tracking of the belt so that you get a belt that runs true all the time. And one of the options might be how long is the infeed section and the outfeed section. Many dryers sold provide 18 inches. That's adequate, but when you're laying down a extra large or double X shirt, it'd be nice to have a little bit more infeed. So you might want to ask if you can get 24 inches of infeed just to have a place to put the shirt down. The more room, the better. But you're of course paying, so that's a decision you have to make. Outfeed is actually a different issue, and the length is really more important, because if the belt is moving rapidly, then my concern is whether or not the ink that is coming out from underneath this hood in a liquid state has sufficient time to gel and cool off before the shirt drops into the box. If the ink is not cold or cool enough when the shirt drops in the box, then you're going to experience shirts sticking together. So we want to be careful about the length of the outfeed section and to make sure that's long enough for the speeds at which we operate. So if we're going to have a choice, we want more length in the outfeed than on the infeed.